Are you making the same mistakes as every other photographer? Well, today we're diving into the 10 biggest debates in brand photography to help you break that copycat trap and finally stand out.
Welcome to Commercial Photographer, your guide to marketing, creativity, and growth. This is a podcast that helps commercial, brand, and headshot photographers navigate the competitive world of commercial photography with actionable strategies to grow your business.
Hello, Marcus. How are you doing?
I am very well, Sam. How's yourself?
Excellent, excellent. And what are you going to be talking to us about today, Marcus?
Well, as it's the branding season, I thought that maybe this is a good opportunity to use the AI and find out 10 topics that branding photographers are always arguing about. So,
excellent. And that's a good segue between the seasons because you've used what you've learned in the AI season and you're applying it to the branding season. I like it, Marcus.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for noticing.
Coming up, we're looking at the 10 top topics that brand photographers keep arguing about in the forums and in workshops. From whether you should niche down even further to the formulaic trap of computers and coffee cups. We tackle the reality of the modern market. We'll discuss the controversial world of commercial licensing for small businesses and why your own personal brand is actually part of your portfolio. Plus, Marcus explains why he chooses high-speed energy over a considered approach to keep his clients excited.
And, well, there's another thing that I've noticed, and that is about branding photographers, and that we don't really argue about camera settings per se, but what we do argue about is how to do the job. You know, the approach, the positioning, and the philosophy behind it. And if you spend any time with branding photographers, either on workshops or online in forums, the same debates seem to come up again and again. So I thought I'd run through a set of those, not to answer them fully, I can't do that, but just to maybe just get the ball rolling. And I'd love for some of your input on this as well, Sam.
Yeah, brilliant. And then listeners as well, your input, get onto the Facebook group, put some your thoughts on that. We'd love to hear.
That's perfect, Sam. Exactly right. So the first one is a bit of a, we've heard this question a lot, but maybe we can drill it down a bit more. And it is, should brand photographers specialize or shoot everything? So normally we talk about should photographers shoot everything. Let's just, Sam, narrow it down to brand photographers and talk about what brand photographers shoot.
So we're saying if you've niched to brand photography, should you niche further?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess a good way to put it, I think, is to say, if you're doing brand photography, anything in the B2B, the business-to-business sphere is okay. It ticks the boxes for me anyhow. So, I'm talking about photographing events, doing headshots, and doing commercial work, not just for personal brand, but for branding for bigger companies.
Okay, excellent. But do you think in terms of pricing and things, do you think that niching further down helps in terms of kind of your exclusivity and your ability to charge higher prices?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first started out doing branding photography about 5 years ago, Sam, I really, really nailed it down to basically working with branding photography and working with coaches and motivational speakers. And the reason I did that was at that time, I was doing a lot of online networking. It was time of COVID. So I thought that was a really easy way just for people to remember me. When they say you do networking, it's just, really don't talk to the people in the room, talk to their diaries or whatever, talk to the people they know. Right. So I really nailed it down to just working with those two types of people, coaches, which is obviously very popular at that time, and motivational speakers. Since then, I have branched out, and then I branched out into doing commercial work, more commercial companies, working in marketing departments and doing, bigger campaigns for them.
Yeah.
And then even more recently, doing events.
Okay.
And we've talked about that. So that I'm still working in the B2B sphere, but I have broadened my speciality.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I do anyhow. Again, we'd love to hear what our listeners, what they think about that. Okay. This next one is a bit of a weird question. I'm not quite sure people debate this, but let's just put it out there. Should brand photographers show their own face in their marketing?
Why not?
Do you need... Okay, I guess what the question is, do brand photographers need a strong personal brand themselves? That's the question, isn't it?
I mean, is that not a fairly obvious one? I mean, surely they do.
Yeah.
Surely you've got to practice what you preach.
Yeah. Exactly, Sam. I totally agree with that. And to the nth degree, we've talked about it on the show about how to brand yourself. And you know me, I am branding all the way. I use my own colors, purple, for my branding. I wear that when I'm doing events or shooting. I do it all the way. I'm really trying to brand myself. I mean, that's what people look when they go to your website or whatever. That's what they're looking for, isn't it?
That's it. They want to see almost examples of your work. And so you are showing your own brand is part of an example of your work. That's not separate from your portfolio, is it really? Yeah. It's almost part of it. Even if actually that photo isn't necessarily yours, it's still curated by you. So it's kind of part of that collection.
Exactly right. It's still curated by you. Exactly. You know, obviously, you've got people there who might be a little bit more retiring or whatever. They might find it difficult, but I think you've really got to overcome that. If you're going to photograph people, you've got to be used to being photographed yourself. And then that gives you a great opportunity to feel what it's like to build up your own brand and be photographed.
That's it. And if you are more shy and retiring, you don't have to be doing those Facebook lives and LinkedIn lives and stuff that you might not like to. But I think, everybody will have to go as far as getting their photo taken. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Question number 3, or debate number 3. So are branding shoots becoming too formulaic? So you can see where we're going to go with this one. There's a growing criticism that branding photography often looks the same. And it's those 3 C's that I've talked about.
I was going to say you were going to do the what was it? The coffee cup, the computer, and the how does a phone be a C? But anyway.
A cell phone.
There we go.
Cell phone. Or champagne flute was another one that you could have had. Yeah, and I definitely think that there has, in the history of branding photography, which is relatively short, there is a lot of that type of stuff. I've shot a lot of people with laptops and coffee cups myself, but I am now, over the last couple of years, I've really moved away from that, and I think the market is embracing that.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's a question of how you move away from that, and that may be, that's all about ideas and how you come up with ideas, etc., etc. But it's not easy. Let me just say, it's not easy. It's easy to fall into that trap of the 3 C's, and it does take quite a lot of visual knowledge to sort of escape that. It's knowing your client, but also knowing how you can interpret what they do, and it's all about little signifiers, little details that give the story, the visual narrative away.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting one, Sam, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this one.
Okay.
And it's a tricky one. Should brand photographers charge commercial licensing?
So as in for use of the photos?
Exactly, Sam. So, some people, I mean, in the world of advertising, a commercial license is what is done. That is exactly what is expected, and that's what people do. And a commercial license is basically it's restricting the usage of an image. So the license might be, you might get a worldwide image to use the image worldwide, or the license might be to use in Europe. It might be to use it on websites. It might be to use it on social media. It might be to use it on a TV ad. It might be a 2-year license. It might be a 3-year license.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of variations.
Yes, lots and lots of variations. And it does get very complicated. And that's basically, I think, traditionally why you get an agent will be involved in this. I think if anybody's got an agent, there's going to be no debate about this question.
But most people don't. So I've got a couple of thoughts on this. The first one is you could just have an absolutely standard one that you just apply across the board. And this is kind of what you give to everybody. And then, there might be the odd client that's different, but you just have something pre-written. That's the right to use it. The other thing from my point of view,
sorry, Sam, it's not the right to use it as so much as you have to pay more to use it outside
use it in
that
other
right.
circumstances. Yeah, so which is, you said that's your rights and you go outside it, you pay.
Yes, yeah.
You come back and pay. The other thought for me, it depends on the client. So if you're doing a brand shoot for a local business, a local business coach, a local accounting firm, the chance of that photo then being used on an international billboard is so minimal that I'd have thought the licensing is not something you need to worry about. Well, if you're working for a slightly bigger business, maybe you're working for a business local to you, but they're part of a bigger group, then it's possible stuff could go up the food chain, or you're working for a bigger client and then the licensing needs to come in. But I'd have thought it's surely to do with the client. And I would have thought for, smaller businesses, you could just say they can use it because you can't really see it ending up on billboards all over the world.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right, Sam. I think when you're doing personal branding, especially here in the UK, it's unlikely that it's going to be used further than a website or social media. Traveling around America, where I think they're much more focused on this kind of licensing, but traveling around America, I do see billboards that do feature like estate agents or dentists or more personal brands, because that's very much part of their what would you call it? Their
culture.
I don't know.
Yes. Well, we drive past and we cringe, don't we? We're in America when we look at it, and you just as a Brit, you cringe and you go out. Yeah. But you could just also, to cover yourself, have a bog standard license that is whatever you decide. This can be used in the UK on websites, on social media, whatever, but you have a license that basically isn't restrictive for most businesses you're working with. But if they do suddenly go big and they want to use it, you've protected yourself. They need to pay more to use it further.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I look at some of my LinkedIn clients, on the LinkedIn profiles of some of the clients I've worked with, and I look at their headshots that I might have shot 5 years ago, and they're still using that same headshot. I think, God, if I had a license in that, I could be charging for using it after 2 years or whatever. I'd be rich. But yeah, no, I don't. I'm with you on that one, Sam. I don't do licensing, and if I do come up to a situation where I'm doing a big campaign, I'd bring on board an agent, and there are agents who would be willing to take one on a one-off basis.
Okay, excellent. We might need to move through some of the others a little bit quicker, Marcus. So we've got a few quick fire ones.
Okay, let's quick fire them. You're right. Okay. So are brand photographers actually photographers or visual strategists? Well, look at this, yeah. I mean, that's an easy one to answer. Back in the day, you were photographers. Nowadays, you are definitely a visual strategist. What do you think, Sam?
Well, both. I mean, they are photographers too. I mean, I'd have thought both.
Yeah, commercially though, but with a B2B, it's a bit of both. Okay, let's go with a bit of both. Now, bearing in mind, we're talking about personal branding, is social media helping or hurting brand photography? Sam, I'm going to put that one over to you.
Surely helping us. It's created a massive demand for the need for images. And there is people using phones and stuff, but that's more linked to phones than social media. Surely social media is driving demand for images.
Exactly. That's why personal branding started. The growth in personal branding has been because of social media and the growth of websites, as you well know, Sam. And that's why this whole personal brand has come up. Before the websites, people weren't solopreneurs. It wasn't such a popular thing to do. Really, it's only since post-COVID there's been a bigger growth, in the need for personal brand and the solopreneur. That's my statement on that. Okay, here we go. Number 7, are personal brand shoots too polished? Gosh, that's a funny one. Do people argue about that?
Depends on them. I've seen some that look over polished and some that are very rough and ready and some in between.
Yeah. I mean, wedding photography has gone through a process, and we might be able to draw comparisons with that. Has gone through a process where initially it was very polished and was done by a few people, and it wasn't really that popular. Nowadays, wedding photography has gone much more down a documentary route. It's more inclusive. You're shooting, all the fun or the drama as well as the group shots. And maybe that's the way personal branding will go. It's going to be, maybe it's not just going to be about bringing out the big old lights and doing it in the studio in the future. It might be about doing it on your phone even, Sam.
Yeah, so you think we're at the stage of brand photography are effectively with the person at the front going, right, I need the mother of the bride and all the uncles of the bride. And getting ththose big groups done. We haven't moved on to the capturing the fun.
Yeah, I mean, that does still go on, really. But wedding photographers, I think we can learn something from them and how that they've transitioned and made it more of a documentary type thing. Right, come up to the end. How are we doing time-wise? Okay, you don't need expensive gear to be a successful brand photographer. Do people debate this?
Yes and no. I mean,
it does come off that last question.
You can't really turn up with a phone, can you? Or an automatic camera.
No. And it does sort of come on for the last question. I think, you do need expensive gear, especially in this country. You need lights, really, whether you're shooting inside or outside. People love those really blurry backgrounds, so you need fast lenses to do that. Quality does matter to a degree, but at the same time,
and then
Sam, in the future, we might be moving towards more phones. I do use a phone occasionally. I do whip out my iPhone and do use it on shoots these days.
And then also, if you're talking about an SLR, or mirrorless, there's a massive range of body costs. And if we're saying if you're doing brand photography and actually doing it for a business that's mainly wanting the photographs for their website and for social, you don't need the top of the range ones because it's not going on a billboard.
No, that's right. That is right.
So there is a range within that. Yes, you do need kind of a decent camera, need some lenses, but to do that sort of thing, I don't think you need the crazy top end stuff.
You don't, Sam. And just as an aside, you can get a full frame, really high spec camera from about 3 or 4 years ago, with a 50mm 1.4, 1.8 lens. You can get that for 600 quid these days, which is not a lot of income.
That with maybe a light would be, you could start with that, couldn't you?
Exactly. And of course, that's just a little segue into a show coming up where we will be debating the merits of the DSLR versus the mirrorless camera. Okay, we've got 2 questions left, Sam. You can decide which one we're going to do.
We'll go both, it's fine.
Are you sure? Okay, well, here we go. Is it better to shoot fast and efficiently or slow and considered? Well, that's definitely one for me. I'm a fashion background. I shoot fast. Bang, bang, bang. I love it. The reason I do that is not just because it gives me lots of images. In fact, that's not the reason at all. The reason I do it is because it gives a great vibe to the shoot and the clients get very excited and they get very this is really good fun. That's the way I do it. If I'm doing a campaign where I'm using professional models, I shoot very slowly. I tether my camera up and I do it. I'm very considered and I work with the client and we do maybe 1 shot a day. So,
okay. So it kind of, does it also partly possibly depend on the photographer's kind of personality? For some people that kind of fast shoot is just not them and it would feel forced.
Yeah, well, guess what kind of personality?
Equally the reverse.
Guess what kind of personality I've got? You can tell by the way I talk. I'm not slow and considered. I'm fast and efficient. Efficient. I'm not quite sure about that. Okay, last one. Here we go. Here we go. Are photographers too safe? Are photographers too safe? Are we playing it too easy? I mean, I guess we've talked a little bit that already.
I guess it's always difficult with commercial work how edgy you go, isn't it? Because you are being paid for it. Like when you get creative, and we were talking the other day with Fabrizio in the show, and she's saying you must have your own personal projects, and that can be really quite edgy and stuff. But it is difficult with commercial work as to how edgy you could go, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's hard even to get a black and white image in there, sometimes. Sure. And you have to make people look good. That is part of the job of doing personal branding. It is making people look good, so you can't use a too contrasty light. So you play within norms and you got to make people feel relaxed. So yes, I think maybe we do play it a bit safe, but it's part of the genre. Okay, let's go with that.
Sure. Well, I think that was a lot to go through, Marcus. And don't forget that you can get for free the Commercial Photographer Guide to Creativity and Marketing. After all, that's what this show is all about. To get your free download, all you need to do is go to our website at commercial-photographer-podcast.com/creativity. Let me do that one again. commercial-photographer-podcast.com/creativity. And from there, you can get your free guide from us to marketing and creativity.
Well, it's clear that the how of the job is much more important than the camera settings. So here are the takeaways for building a business with real value for future sales. Position yourself as a strategist. To command higher fees, you must move beyond being a technician and start acting as a visual strategist for your clients. Document your rights. Even for small clients, a standard license protects the long-term value of your work if that business eventually scales up. And finally, practice the vulnerability. If you want your clients to be brave in front of your lens, you have to be the face of your own brand first. Don't be an invisible business owner. Thank you, Sam. Just before we do finish up, on that licensing we were talking about earlier, we did do an earlier show going way back with Christine Saunders. I don't know if you remember that one, Sam.
Yeah,
and we talked extensively there about licensing and that kind of thing.
There we go. So go back and listen to that. And otherwise, Marcus, I will see you next week.
See you next week, Sam.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to make sure you never miss a show, head to the website commercial-photographer-podcast.com and sign up to the newsletter. We'll be back next week with more practical advice to help you grow your business. See you next time.